other people want these integrations with Booker.com, with House Call Pro, with Service Titan. Why don't we just build it once and let other people subscribe to those integrations?
Hey everyone, I am here again with both Jakin and Braden. I've had both of these guys on a podcast previously, both of them fantastic people to have a chat with, and both very knowledgeable when it comes to building AI and building around AI. So they kind of came up against an issue, a problem. When deploying AI, there was something that was taking quite a bit of time, and they created a solution which is specifically built out for AI voice. So if you're an agency that even thinks about deploying AI voice, these guys might be somebody you want to talk to. But let's first of all just go ahead and kind of tune in and see what they got for us. Last time when they explained it, they were quite zealous about it, and so no, they're great folks. Okay, go ahead. What do you got? Introduce yourself a little bit. Let's go.
All right. Well, I'm Braden. Jakin, we've been working together and alongside each other in the same Assistable community from the very beginning of Assistable, and I've been enjoying watching the stories unfold across the board. But during that time, we essentially realized that there's some key pieces of AI build-outs, particularly for voice, that were recurring and something that everybody could probably use a solution for. And so we built Integrate. Integrate is our plug-and-play backend for voice and agent-based AI workflows. So instead of spending months writing APIs and wiring those up and then seeing a change log and having to touch them again, you can just lean into us for that, right? All sorts of utilities that we're baking into these, some of which are designed to address pain points in voice AI. Others are to extend and specialize your offer. And ultimately, it's going to be the community of users around Integrate that decides what the roadmap looks like. Jakin, do you want to talk a little bit about the value or value proposition specifically for agency owners?
Yeah, so as an agency owner, a lot of them, especially if you're just one guy, you have to do everything from sales, admin, prompting, going through onboarding with your clients, checking billing, all that. And one of the harder things is building custom tools. Even if you know what you're doing, which not everyone does, even if you know what you're doing, you have to build it out yourself. It takes time. You have to test it. And then you're either hosting it yourself, so every time a customer uses it, it costs you money, or you host it on your clients' systems. And then every time they use it, it doesn't cost you any money, but now you have to convince them to pay you a maintenance fee, and they don't want to. So you still have to end up fixing it when it breaks, because it will eventually break, because systems change. And so now you're doing that for free, all while trying to do everything else. So what we do is we came in and said, man, what's taken the most of our time is building out these custom tools and testing them, making sure they work and adding new features. And even if we do everything well, we're now spinning all these plates in the background, making sure the endpoints are still up. If we want to do anything like failovers or trying to make improvements on an endpoint, we would have to make a change to every single one of our customers' endpoint tools using that endpoint. And there's no way to monitor it or see if that one endpoint went down or if there's something just wrong with that client. So I'm like, man, what are we going to do? For me, what I did and what Braden started doing too is we started building our own systems that we realized were normally just copy and paste, but with a slight change with like inside of the tool description for that client. And what I did is I started hosting my own services so I could just subscribe my new clients to it, regardless of what tool they were on.
So can you just explain a little bit, like tool, when you say custom tool, what specific ones would you point out now, just so we can have some tangible thoughts here?
Let's talk about something that was almost impossible just a couple months ago, and now almost everyone knows how to do it, but it's still quite a bit of a juggling task for some. Multi-calendar booking. Multi-calendar booking is honestly not that hard once you know the basics of it, but you still have to build it out for each of your clients. You have to understand their needs, and you have to build new endpoints for them, and it's costing you for every endpoint you build. And then you have to monitor all those. So now in our case, we have a multi-calendar booking endpoint that has a very simple walkthrough of how to set up your custom tool for that booking endpoint, booking and availability endpoint. If you copy step by step, it will work. We have some of the craziest examples of, we have one of our clients, I think I mentioned this last time, has like 27 area codes, and they've got calendar by area code for availability, and it works every time. He tried for 11 months to make it work, and he finally outsourced to us, and we had it built out for him. And it is a standard multi-calendar booking tool, but the way we've done it is we cover for a lot of possible failures
So,
that most
when,
people don't
okay.
think about.
So now this is obviously still working within Assistable, Nexus AI, or Go High Level. Like it still connects that way. But if you for booking, would this also work with other CRMs?
So yes, we do have other CRMs as well, but each one of those CRMs will need their own, like say MindBody actually uses a system called Booker.com, and that would require a separate integration, which we've already built. There's a few integrations to other CRMs and other booking systems we've already built out. We do want to get the most common ones first, so we can do the most good for the community. And but there are one-offs that we see a lot of people asking for very often, and those are other ones we want to be able to take care of. Because if I don't know about you, I'm a pretty smart guy, but I still have a developer on hand, and I love him. He makes my life so much easier. And I figured, man, it costs sometimes tens of thousands of dollars to build out some of these endpoints, some of these CRM integrations. And I have to pay for that every time I want this done for every new integration. But other people want these integrations with Booker.com, with House Call Pro, with Service Titan. Why don't we just build it once and let other people subscribe to those integrations?
Yeah, yeah, that's really cool. So a couple more examples. So I know a while ago there was an example of like solar, for example, where they would look for a specific sizing of the roof and all that type of stuff. Just so we kind of get an idea of what types of things you build. I'm guessing that one might not be built out yet, but if you saw a lot of need for it, you would do it. But can you just explain a couple different use case solutions? So we have multi-calendar even for different CRMs.
Yeah, we've got multi-calendar for different CRMs. We have, what else do we have? For some reason,
Got a
I'm
couple
blanking.
quality of life sort of items
yeah.
as well, right? So zip code autocomplete, just auto
Ooh.
address complete, which is a massive pain point in voice AI. It can work perfectly in testing, and if you've got a clean audio line, that it continues to work perfectly, but add a little background noise, and you've got an issue there, right? So those are all things that we've experienced in production, and so autocomplete is an example of one that just fixes it like that, decreases the error rate significantly.
Nice.
Across the board. So that's,
Yeah.
I think
And
personally, that's like an
that's
example
another
of something
thing.
that's super simple, but is really nice to have and keep on hand.
But address autocomplete by zip, I mean, that's really helpful over the phone because they only have to say 5 letters and 5 numbers in a row over the phone if you're in the US. But what happens if you're in an area where there isn't exactly a zip code that's tracked by, say, USPS, United States Postal Code? Well, then we have by region, and we show you how to set that up as well. So if somebody calls in and they tell you what their address is, it'll check your region first for auto completion. So just imagine how many failures get resolved just on mispronouncing their street name or whatever else. But if you can have the zip code and the first 4 digits of your street number, we can narrow it down to about 2 or 3 addresses in the whole US very quickly. And depending on the size of your region, we can narrow it down to 1 very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then what we also specified is we didn't want all of the US to be validating. We want to be specified by that zip code, which is something Google doesn't do natively. It's something we had to build out to integrate with to integrate with Google. So it's actually a feature that we can't find anywhere else. We had it custom built.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting. And so now, okay, so we have a couple of those here now. What other ones can you kind of spit out? Some other ones that you've built out,
do you wanna
or
talk
that you
about the one
see
where-
that might be built out, even like that might be on the roadmap.
Oh, on the roadmap? Oh, that's exciting. What do you want to, Braden, do you first want to talk about post call?
Yeah, so I mean, the one of the ones that I'm most excited about in the near future is just essentially a monitoring dashboard that has 2 interfaces, one facing the agency owner and one facing the client, right? And we are very familiar with the white label space, Assistable, Nexus. We've known them for a long time. And so this solution is designed to give you a really pretty dashboard that you can share with your client without giving them control into the AI system, or they go poking around and breaking stuff, or they think they want to change a prompt to make it more friendly, and all of a sudden now it's like not even speaking English, or whatever language you want it to.
Yeah.
So this monitoring dashboard is designed for both your client and yourself, and you can set what the client can see on that, and it's just a simple panel, essentially, that in design is going to serve 2 needs. One, to optimize internal operations and air handling and troubleshooting when those issues do arise, and also to show how your voice system is bringing value to the client through custom KPIs. And all of this will
Dude,
become right out of
you're
that.
just getting me really excited here. Okay, tell me
Yeah.
more about this, because what are the different KPIs you're showing? What are you showing when you're saying troubleshooting, helping on like on the agency side, but also the client side? What are you going to be
Well,
showing?
There's a couple things right away, and I'll pass it right back to Braden. But one of the first things are we can see, because we're doing post-call analysis, not somebody else, we can actually expose our tool call responses to ourselves. So we can actually put in there what the responses of the tool calls were. And from an overarching 10,000-foot view with us as Integrate, we can actually see what's happening across the board. So is everyone getting a 401? Okay, we have an authentication issue. Is everyone getting a 500? Okay, well then we want to fall back to an alternative service endpoint so that that's not broken anymore, right? That's stuff that we can do that no one else can do if you're on our service. Braden?
Yeah, so quality assurance is a big piece, as Jake mentioned, and that kind of wider view helps, right? So if a service is down, that's something that we'll be alerted to and can post on this little dashboard, right? But if your client logs in, they're going to have different things that make them interested in your service to begin with. And that varies to some extent. So that's why we want to make them a little bit customizable. But at the end of the day, we want to be able to help you communicate to your clients why the cost of your service is a good decision for your client. Always, right? And so in the age of AI, it's very strange to see what value looks like. I mean, we're right on the verge, I think a lot of us, of replacing entire labor costs to the tune of like an hourly rate of a human, right? And so how do you communicate, value to a business owner who likes their employees? Well, you don't say, I'm going to replace your staff, right? You say, okay, this can answer this many calls, and we'll show you how many calls it answers and how many calls it converts. And in that case, maybe that client likes to see conversion numbers. And then you have a bigger business who does want to see labor costs. And you can show that your AI is on 24/7 doing this many calls per hour and decreasing labor costs by X. And that's kind of the idea. Whatever is valuable to people to see, be it agency owner or client, we want to be able to support that through the dashboard.
Because if you can convince somebody to pay you $1,500 a month to answer phone calls, and they go by 3 months with business as normal, they're going to cancel the service. Because unless you've gone out of your way to show them where the value is that you're adding them and how many calls you've received and how many issues you've mitigated, they're not going to see the value because they still just see calls coming in as normal.
It's like a
so being
sound
able
guy
to show
at a
them.
concert, right? Nobody thinks about
Exactly.
the sound engineer at a concert until he makes
Yeah.
a mistake, right?
That's very
Yeah.
true.
So you got to give him the shout out at the end.
Right. So when it comes to kind of the troubleshooting or quality assurance of this, is that around the platform with integrate with those endpoints, or even beyond that potentially?
Oh.
With what I'm saying is with the conversations already happening in Assistable.
Yeah, so right now, one of the main levers we're using for this is the post-call webhook, and then doing processing and logic on that. So most, if not all, I actually haven't encountered a single voice AI service that uses telephony that doesn't have a post-call webhook. So at this point, it's a monitoring dashboard for kind of across the board. And that's because we recognize that a lot of services are dependent on other services. And regardless of how good a service is or isn't, another service can go down that impacts that. So we want to be interchangeable with people's setups to best support people where they're at.
Nice.
Especially
nice.
for those using multiple voice service providers as a backup or failover, or to extend their service ability. Instead of having to build out custom tools multiple times on multiple endpoints and being able to swap back and forth, knowing that these tools don't actually work together when you're jumping from service to service because they typically have different authentication methods and maybe the tools are read differently. What we have done is we're building all of our tools and endpoints and all of our, this is one of the really cool things, we do some sanitization on the back end. So when you make a tool call, everything's sent back to you normally and every other method with API, just a huge wall of text of things that the AI doesn't actually care for or need. And you break something called the context window, and the bot gets very confused and starts hallucinating, and the customer gets upset. So what we do instead is we actually do sanitization, and we cut out everything that's not part of what you need from that response, so that the bot only needs to know, was the appointment booked? Yes, at this time. Or was the address found? Yes, here's the address. It doesn't need a list of 50 of the nearest addresses. It doesn't need a list of all the zip codes and area codes that support that. So we actually make it, that's why what we were talking about earlier before we started the call, if we build something that helps do in-depth analysis or designing, that can take 5 minutes to 2 hours to run.
Yeah.
That's not going to work well on a phone call. However, if we build something for a phone call that does really fast, responsive, very short, succinct responses that have the information you need, that can be put into the in-depth analysis. So in-depth analysis, messaging, and then voice. So anything from voice can work on anything else. Everything up here doesn't really work too well on chat, doesn't work too well on voice. So we built for voice, but it works for anything. But that's our focus. Our focus is voice, so that we can actually get response times down fast enough and keep context windows small enough so that your bot responds in a decent timeline, reliably, and without hallucinating.
Yeah, fantastic. And so right now, you have a bit of an offer since you're just opening the doors to this. And let me just quickly share the website here. Let's see who's going to come up. There we go. It should.
Oh, one of the integrations I forgot to mention, we have House Call Pro up and running. We're going through some testing now. And we have Job Nimbus pretty much built out, but it is not pushed public yet.
Oh, that's really cool. So are you saying that you can basically, when a call completes, you can add any detail to any field in House Call Pro? Like basically, it's a complete integration to pretty much any field.
Doesn't have to be post call only. We actually do calls live.
Oh.
So like with Job Nimbus, if somebody calls in and says they wanted to add a note to an existing job, the system actually does a job check. And if it can't find them by the phone number they called in, then it checks by their address. And if it can't find them by their address, then it creates a job. And if they just want to leave a note, then it creates the contact for them and leaves a activity note on their contact page so that staff can get back to them. So it's finding, like we understand, almost everybody here should understand pretty well how to build out a flow inside of GHL. One of the problems that falls on our shoulders squarely is not just maintaining these endpoints and rebuilding and monitoring and building backups, but it's also understanding all the other tools we're connecting to in a way that it would in the flow and how it would be used by the client and what they're expecting. So a roofer using Job Nimbus doesn't want a task. They want a note, or they want a job, or they want a new contact, but they don't want a duplicate contact. So we have to make sure not to do that, right? It's a lot of thinking on our side and testing out on our side. And that's why we actually hire and pay for developers, so that we're not having to figure it out ourselves as engineers.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And honestly, I'm really looking forward to diving into this. So the website, if anybody wants to visit it, it's integrate. So ship.integrate.cloud. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to drop the link below the video here as well. By the way, it's not an affiliate link.
Wrong.
I mean, it'd be great if it was an affiliate link, but it's not. I haven't even asked about that. Didn't even talk about that. But so what we got here is their website. So check it out. And I'm very curious to dive in. But right now it's at $37.99 forever if you jump in before the price jump. So they're looking to get some folks in to kind of, be the first to experience it and stuff like that. And I'm excited, especially hearing the different integration with the different CRMs, all that. There's a lot that you're going to be doing here. And then also, if we really need something, you're open to creating it. So there's just, if anybody needs an endpoint, development. These guys can do that without me having to go develop it, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, the story I like to, especially if you're not in the space already, I like giving a quick short story, and that is pretend you're an agency owner and you have to spin all these hats. You have to spin all these plates. What if we could take care of everything, custom tooling off of you, all the endpoints, all the rebuilding, everything else, and how much more could you sell? How much more could you separate your roles so you can actually grow? If you're spending less time spinning plates, you can spend more time building and selling.
Yeah, super. Hey, thanks a lot, guys. Thanks so much for sharing this. I'm looking forward to diving in.
Good to see you again.
100%.
Right.
Anytime.